Stocks see some green on positive global cues, with financials and oil and gas leading the charge, even as real estate and healthcare drag. Mid-caps underperform the key indices.
ICICI Bank beats profit expectations, while SBI Life Insurance ekes out better than estimated margins. But HCL Tech turns in weaker than expected growth and margin numbers.
Advent International inks a deal to acquire over 12% stake in Apollo 24/7, which will merge Group Pharma distribution arm Keimed for 2,475 crore rupees. The deal at a discount to expected valuation hurts sentiment, even as the management guides for healthy margin improvement by FY 2027.
AU Small Finance Bank perks up on universal banking hopes following release of RBI norms, and IRDA gets a Navratna status boost, but BSE sulks on a revision of its fee payout to SEBI.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi tells News 18 in an exclusive interview that he aims for solar panels in every home to bring electricity costs down to zero, even as he dismisses inheritance tax as an idea of others. Hello and welcome. You've tuned into Business Lunch. I'm Nisha Podar. As usual, with me is Sonia Shenoy. So, Sonia, in terms of beginning the day, at the moment at lunch hour, market is showing a lot of gain and resilience. But of course, we have had quite a bit of volatility in the first half of the trading session. But some of the big boys are really participating in this kind of a momentum. On my screen, big boy from the banking space, ICICI Bank, is gaining close to about 4% in trade, and the others at the moment are BPCL, Tech Mahindra, IndusInd Bank, but not to also discount the factor of the biggest bank, SBI, as well as Kotak Mahindra Bank, HDFC Bank in terms of heavyweight, and Reliance Industries, all putting their might, so that 0.7% is a gain on Nifty 50 at the moment, 22,575 odd levels, and Sensex too gaining close to 700 points in trading session. But what's really showing maximum kind of exuberance and outperformance to the key indices is the banking space. Of course, the biggest, percentage winner also is from the banks. 1.65% up in trade is Bank Nifty, and mid caps are showing underperformance today. Sonia.
Oh, absolutely. This is an out-and-out bull market, right? We've been talking about that ad nauseum as to how there's so much traction in this market, and it just refuses to give up on its gains. Every dip is getting bought. New sectors are coming into the fray now. In fact, if you look at it today, the Bank Nifty is playing a huge role. I mean, it's almost 800 points higher. So one or the other sector keeps playing its part in taking this markets higher. Almost 50,000 now on the Bank Nifty, that milestone all ready to get hit. And the advanced decline ratio is solid today as well. The other thing which is working in the market's favor is, of course, the way the global markets are moving, right? You have a big event this week, which is the US Fed meeting. Global markets have done exceptionally well up until now. So let's see. The wind is definitely blowing in favor of the bulls. Let's see if that continues. But let's focus on the big stock movers this afternoon. First up, HCL Tech is the top Nifty loser after reporting a disappointing set of fourth quarter numbers. The constant currency revenue growth came in at 0.3% versus expectations of 0.45%, while the margins contracted by over 200 basis points on a sequential basis. The IT majors FY25 guidance was lowered to 3 to 5% versus expectations of 5 to 7%. Earlier today, we spoke to the management of HCL Tech, asked them about their FY25 guidance. Listen into what they had to say.
In FY23, we had the highest growth in services. We had the growth leadership in the industry. 24, we maintained the growth leadership. And I'm pretty confident that we will maintain the growth leadership in a handsome way this year as well. We've done $2.3 billion of booking this quarter, a bulk of which will translate into revenue in Q2. And we remain confident of growth in Q2 and the subsequent quarters, which should nicely help us deliver the market leadership on the growth.
Last 2 years, if you see FY23 as well as FY24, we have given the guidance of 18 to 19%. And we've delivered exactly the same number, 18.2% in both those years. So given the environment that we are currently going through, I think that's the right range for this period. The aspirational range of 19 to 20% that we have talked about is a little pushed out right now. But our efforts are always to sort of get back to that pre-COVID kind of a range that we talked about.
All right, so away from the tech space, let's talk about the healthcare space. And Apollo HealthCo, a subsidiary of Apollo Hospitals, has entered into an agreement with global private equity firm Advent International to raise 2,475 crore rupees. And the stock is down today in trade. In fact, Ekta is right here with the details of this deal and what brokerages are making of it. Ekta.
Thanks for that. Well, the stock has recovered, but nonetheless, it is under pressure because the street has some concerns with regards to the deal. So, for example, one of the key concerns is that it is a complex deal. It's a complicated deal. Jefferies, for example, says that Apollo Hospitals will need strong execution given the complex structure. Now, the other key point is that there is a promoter entity involvement here. So there is a related party transaction with Keimed, which is the promoter distribution, pharmaceutical distribution company, which will be merged with the company, with Apollo HealthCo. Now, the deal valuations are also lower than expected for Apollo Health. So that means CLSA has said Apollo Health is at a discount of around 5,600 crores as compared to CLSA's valuations. Jefferies has valued the deal at 14,478 crores, which is lower than their 17,000 crore SOTP valuation. Sunita Reddy, when quizzed about that, did say that the valuation of Apollo HealthCo is around 20% lower than what the market expectations were. But the reason for the deal is, for example, it will be forming one of the largest omni-channel plays. The timeline of the deal also was crucial according to them. Now, Keimed margins, that's the other key point. It's around 3.6% for FY23. Sunita Reddy has said that they will improve margins to around 10 to 11% for the combined entity by around FY27 versus the 7 to 8% which they've guided for. Very big task when it comes to revenue. FY27, they expect the revenues to go to 25,000 crores for this consolidated entity with margins of 7 to 8%. They'll probably have to go down the acquisition route. Sunita Reddy has said that they will probably have to look at inorganic growth to achieve those targets. Now, brokerages are a bit sanguine about this. Morgan Stanley has said that they have an overweight and a target price of 7,181. The deal valuations for AHL were lower than expected. CLSA outperformed, target price 7,000. Value of Apollo Health is at a discount, according to them, of around 5,600 crores as per their valuation metrics. And Nuvama, for example, maintains a buy. Target price is reduced to 7,300. They believe the valuation was a letdown at 1.7 billion versus estimated 2.7 billion. Also, doubling of Keimed's valuation in a year is an aggressive target. The fundraise, however, will minimize the cash burn for the 24/7 arm, but they've reduced the pharmacy target valuation from 25 times EV to EBITDA to around 22 times.
Okay, in fact, earlier we also spoke to Sunita Reddy, the managing director at Apollo Hospitals, to understand the contours of this deal. Listen into what she had to tell us.
We now will have a very strong balance sheet, which will enable the growth of Apollo HealthCo. And if you look at the entire transaction, it will create India's largest omni-channel pharmacy play. Added to that, of course, is the benefits that will now come from the digital network that we have created, which has multiple revenue streams. So we are enabling growth, we are funding growth, and we have a strong balance sheet. It could be at a 20% discount to market expectations, but I think having cash in hand and a strong balance sheet far outweighs that. Current margins are at 3%, but I think as we go forward, we have to look at the scale of Keimed and the fact that it supplies to 70,000 pharmacies. We believe that private label is the right way forward. So if you look at, combination of both what we're doing, AHL offline and Keimed, we're able to deliver a 10.7% margin moving into 11%. And that with the significant scale is actually a good number. I think Keimed is looking at some inorganic growth and that will enable it to grow at around 20%.
All right, so that's the status of Apollo Hospitals. Let's shift focus to another space which is under pressure, BSE as well as MCX. Take a look at those counters under tremendous pressure on the back of changes to the regulatory fee imposed on them by the market regulator SEBI. In fact, our colleague Vamakshi joins in with all the details on the development. Vamakshi, over to you.
Well, absolutely. Both of these counters are under pressure today after the regulatory setback that the companies have seen. The companies have been asked to pay a regulatory fee to SEBI based on annual turnover calculated on the notional value of the options contract. Now, notional value being the key word here, given that the companies were earlier calculating the annual turnover based on the premium value for the options contracts. Now, just to give our viewers some perspective, let me break it down with the help of an example. Now, for instance, consider a call option with a lot size of 10, strike price of nearly 1,000 and premium of 100 rupees. So if you buy one lot, the premium turnover, which is the premium into the lot size, which will stand at around 1,000 rupees. Now earlier the regulatory fees were calculated on this premium value. The notional turnover, on the other hand, is equal to the strike price plus the premium into the lot size, which brings it to almost 11,000. And SEBI says that the regulatory fees should have actually been paid on this value. So definitely the notional turnover is much higher as compared to the premium turnover, and therefore some differential fees are being demanded. BSE is expected to pay 165 crores, while MCX is expected to pay nearly 4.5 crores. Jeffrey says that the higher fees could hit the overall EPS for BSE by almost 15 to 18%. They've gone ahead and downgraded this rating from buy to hold and lowered their target price to 2,900 to account for this. While on the other hand, Morgan Stanley believes that the differential fees are expected to account for only 1% of the FY25 PBT estimates for MCX. They've given an underweight call, target price of 2,100 per share. But largely, this regulatory setback is driving both of these counters under pressure today.
All right, Vamakshi, thanks a lot for that. Take a short break, but up next we'll get you excerpts from Prime Minister Narendra Modi's exclusive interview to News 18. Stay tuned. You're watching Business Lunch on CNBC TV 18. Well, moving on to the big exclusive interview now. Prime Minister Narendra Modi sat down with Network 18's Group Editor-in-Chief Rahul Joshi and News 18 Network's Vilas Bade and Hari Prasad and challenged political parties to bring back Article 370 and also spoke about why the revocation of the law was needed in the state of Jammu and Kashmir. Listen into excerpts from that exclusive conversation.
आपने पिछले कार्यकाल में काफ़ी बड़े काम किए, आर्टिकल 370 को रद्द किया, सीएए को लेके आए, मगर ऑपोजिशन लीडर्स इस कैंपेन में सब कह रहे हैं कि अगर वो सरकार बनाएंगे तो इन सब को जो है सीएए को रिपील कर देंगे। ममता बनर्जी खास करके कह रही हैं सीएए को इम्प्लीमेंट नहीं होने देंगी। इसको आप कैसे देखते हैं?
पहली बात है कि जिसको भारत का संविधान समझ है, जिसको भारत के फेडरल स्ट्रक्चर का पता है, किसके पास कौन काम है वो सब पता है, वो कभी ऐसी बात बोलेंगे नहीं, क्योंकि ये उनके अधिकार क्षेत्र का विषय ही नहीं है। जी। अगर मोदी भी राज्य का मुख्यमंत्री होता है तो नहीं कर सकता है। जो भारत सरकार के विषय हैं वो भारत सरकार करेगी, जो राज्य सरकार के विषय होते हैं वो राज्य सरकार करेगी। लेकिन जनता को मूर्ख बनाने की फैशन हो गई है, जनता को अंधेरे में रखने, इसलिए वो कुछ भी बोलते रहते हैं। दूसरी बात है, मैं चैलेंज करता हूँ, कांग्रेस पार्टी कल प्रेस कॉन्फ्रेंस करके बता दें कि हम 370 वापस लाएंगे, क्योंकि 370 हटने के बाद ये लोग संविधान की इतनी बड़ी बातें करते हैं ना, बाबा साहब अम्बेडकर के नाम पर हमको इतनी गालियां देते हैं। हिंदुस्तान में बाबा साहब अम्बेडकर का संविधान पूरे देश में लागू नहीं हुआ था। जम्मू कश्मीर में 70 साल तक भारत का संविधान नहीं लगा है। ये हमने आकर के भारत के संविधान, और वहाँ दलितों को पहली बार आरक्षण मिल रहा है। वाल्मीकि समाज वहाँ रहता है, वहाँ पहली बार आरक्षण मिल रहा है। ये सब क्या बातें करते हैं जी, और उनकी हिम्मत है क्या? वो प्रेस कॉन्फ्रेंस करके बोले कि हम 370 फिर से वापस लाएंगे। हिम्मत है तो कोई भी दल हिम्मत है तो आ जाए मैदान में।
Stamp of the Muslim League on it. Listen into those comments.
आपने जो है राजस्थान में एक रैली में एक कांग्रेस के मैनिफेस्टो पर एक डायरेक्ट अटैक किया। आपने ये तक कहा कि इनका एक स्कीम है जिससे कि ये वेल्थ डिस्ट्रीब्यूट करना चाहते हैं, ये पता लगाना चाहते हैं किसके पास कितनी जमा पूंजी है, किसके पास कितना पैसा है, किसके पास कितना सोना है, सिल्वर है, चांदी है, और उसको वो मुसलमानों में और घुसपैठियों में बांट देना चाहते हैं। क्या ये थ्रेट इतना रियल है? क्या आपको ऐसा दिखता है?
कांग्रेस का जहाँ तक मैनिफेस्टो है, कोई मुझे बताए क्या चुनाव के अंदर पॉलिटिकल पार्टियों के मैनिफेस्टो ये कोई शोपीस के लिए होते हैं क्या? सचमुच में तो मीडिया का काम है कि हर एक पॉलिटिकल पार्टी के मैनिफेस्टो की बारीकी से जांच पड़ताल करे। मैं इंतजार कर रहा था कि मीडिया करे। पहले दिन मैंने एक कमेंट तो कर दिया था
जी,
मैं कोई आज कर नहीं रहा
जी,
कि भाई मुझे मैनिफेस्टो देख करके लगता है कि इस पर पूरी तरह मुस्लिम लीग की छाप है। तो मुझे लगा कि मीडिया चौंक जाएगा, जो एनालिसिस करने वाले चौंक जाएंगे, लेकिन पता नहीं अब उनकी व्यस्तता कुछ और है। मैनिफेस्टो में उनकी तरफ से जो परोसा गया उतना ही गुड़ी गुड़ी उछालते रहे। फिर मुझे लगता भी ये तो इकोसिस्टम का बड़ा मिलीबग लगता है। अब मुझे सच्चाई लेकर जाना पड़ेगा। मैंने काफ़ी 10 दिन इंतजार किया कि देश इस मैनिफेस्टो में जो बुराइयां हैं उसको कोई न कोई, क्योंकि निष्पक्ष तरीके से आता है तो अच्छा है। आखिरकार मुझे मजबूरन ये सच्चाइयां लेकर के आनी पड़ी। आप देखिए साहब, अब उनके एक महाशय ने अमेरिका में इंटरव्यू दे दिया
जी, इनहेरिटेंस टैक्स पर।
तो इनहेरिटेंस टैक्स की बात ले आए, 55% टैक्स आपकी प्रॉपर्टी। अब मैं विकास और विरासत की बात कर रहा हूँ, ये विरासत को लूटने की बात करते हैं। तो मैं और वेल्थ रिडिस्ट्रीब्यूशन की बात करते हैं, और उनके आज तक का इतिहास है वो करेंगे क्या? तो फिर मेरी जिम्मेवारी, मेरी रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी है कि मैं देशवासियों को बताऊं कि भाई ये इस दिशा में ले जा रहे हैं। अब आप तय कीजिए, जाना न जाना जनता जनार्दन का हक है, लेकिन मेरा दायित्व बनता है कि तथ्य के आधार पर, तर्क के आधार पर, उनकी हकीकतों के आधार पर मुझे बताना चाहिए, वो मैं बता रहा हूँ।
All right, you can tune in to that entire conversation with the Prime Minister at 9 p.m. later tonight on CNBC TV 18 and across the Network 18 channels, so don't lose sight of that. Very important conversation there. But in more election-related news, the Defence Minister and BJP's candidate from Lucknow has filed his nomination papers. Uttar Pradesh Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath was also present with him. Lucknow will be voting in the 5th phase of the Lok Sabha elections on the 20th of May. Meanwhile, the Union Minister and BJP leader Smriti Irani also held a roadshow earlier today, as she will also be filing her nomination papers for the Amethi constituency in Uttar Pradesh.
जी उनका भी स्वागत अभिनंदन है। हमारे बीच में अमेठी के जिला पंचायत के अध्यक्ष।
All right, away from all the top developments when it comes to election, let's slip into a short breather on Business Lunch. In fact, when we return, we'll get you excerpts from CNBC's conversation with OPEC Secretary General on trends in the oil market and more. Stay tuned for that.
कांग्रेस का जहां तक मैनिफेस्टो है, इस पर पूरी तरह मुस्लिम लीग की छाप। अगर ईडी सीबीआई से चुनाव जीते जाते तो ईडी सीबीआई का काम तो इतने सालों तक कांग्रेस ने किया है। आज उत्तर प्रदेश की और देश का हाल ऐसा है कि बड़े बड़े नेता लोकसभा के मैदान से भाग रहे हैं, राज्यसभा का रास्ता खोज रहे हैं। एक भी केस ड्रॉप नहीं किया गया। जो अदालत कहेगी वही होगा। अब मुझे देश को तीसरी आर्थिक महाशक्ति बना।
You've tuned into Business Lunch, and let's take you through some important global developments of the day and shifting focus to the war in West Asia. Well, the fighting is now in the 7th month and at least 27 Palestinians were killed in an overnight attack on Rafah and Gaza City. As the situation remains grim, Hamas officials are set to travel to Egypt's capital for a fresh round of ceasefire talks today. This comes after the United Nations warned that famine thresholds in Gaza will be breached within the next 6 weeks unless they are given aid. Amid this, the U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken has arrived in Saudi Arabia in an attempt to speed up the Gaza ceasefire talks. He's also set to visit Jordan and Israel as parts of his trip as the situation remains volatile in the region.
All right, let's focus on the commodity space now. The Secretary General of the OPEC says that the oil prices remain at high levels due to lack of investments. He also spoke about the inflation trends. Let's listen into that conversation.
It's not uncommon for us to go through periods of heightened geopolitical tensions and turmoil. Again, we keep always the politics aside from our business, and we really focus on the fundamental aspects of the global markets, where we look at numbers, we look at economic growth, we look at supply, we look at demand. But there's not much we can do to control what happens geopolitically, I guess. However, yes, there may be or may not be implications on flows of oil, production of oil in certain countries that may or may not be affected, and that definitely goes into our considerations. So we take a close look, we monitor, and we always try to make sure that there is adequate supplies to the market. And there's a stable oil market.
So how would you characterize the fundamentals right now then?
I would say healthy, but I'm always, as I've said before in interviews with you and others, we're always cautiously optimistic. We see global demand this year growing by 2.2 million barrels a day relative to last year. That's versus a growth last year of 2.5 million barrels per day. Look at prices, and we don't target prices. But as you recall also maybe in some previous interviews, and I keep repeating this message over and over again, if prices are to remain elevated, it's because of the lack of investments that are unfortunately still being pushed by certain quarters and certain circles. The continuous messaging about the need to stop investing in oil and gas, oil in our case, this is what to me remains a concern as demand increases. Like I said, we had 2.5 million barrels a day growth last year. This year, we're expecting 2.2 million barrels a day. We're confident in our numbers. Last year's our numbers proved to be the most accurate forecast for oil demand growth. My team and I, we have a good level of confidence in our numbers this year also coming. In fact, we're seeing other agencies and forecasting groups bringing their demand numbers, revising them upwards every month or so. And probably by the end of the year, they will be pretty much close to the OPEC numbers. So my real concern, my real fear is that this continuous messaging about don't invest in oil is what's really going to lead to more volatility. We have done everything we can at OPEC, and we will continue to do messaging that the importance of investing in oil for the future, not just for today, not just for the short, medium term, but even for the longer term, is absolutely critical to avoid volatility, to maintain stability in the global market, which ultimately is not just to benefit us as producing countries or an organization, but also for the benefit of consumers globally.
All right. So at the moment, market is gaining momentum led by the banks, especially ICICI Bank, which has hit a market cap of over 8 lakh crore rupees for the first time. Mid-cap radar will take all the market action forward. It's goodbye from Business Lunch team.